I don't forget. I don't forget, Danny. Cute.
What's up, Q?
Looks like you're all signed out.
What's happening?
I'm done. How are you?
Good.
Hey, I may or may not have gotten some oil that I might give you. Because I
Oil?
love you. Essential oils.
What?
Stacy gave me a bunch. Yeah. I got you. I bought one for Vlad's house. He doesn't like it yet, but he will.
What kind is it?
I don't know,
I got
but it
that.
smells.
Well, I got tea tree, eucalyptus.
These
I
are
think
the
it's
good
supposed
ones,
to
right? I don't know about this one. I don't. This one right here. I don't like lemongrass either. Yeah, I don't do lemongrass. I don't blame you on that one.
Here, see, smell
Thank
that.
you.
Like it.
Either I throw them away or I give them away.
I like this one.
Give them away.
Have that.
Okay.
I would feel bad.
I have
Tell me.
more Vlad's house that I'll bring home.
Okay.
But yeah. So
I don't know if nobody shows
you
up
like
here.
this?
One of my coworkers.
This is
We
a
only
good
got 2
one.
weeks left.
Either one.
Oh, yeah?
Pick one of those.
Oh, yeah, she told me.
Yeah.
Yep. It's so wide. I'm like, it's like a nightmare.
Why do you know everybody?
You make
I
those?
like this one.
No, Stacy did.
Everybody.
Can't even
You like that one? Okay, you can take that one.
6 degrees and 7 degrees early. No, I love it. Because anytime I say, oh, my mom, she's like, oh, but yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I smell it from here.
Right. Oh, Angela,
Hello.
Debbie's wife, makes like rubs
Oh, yeah?
with the oils and stuff. Yeah.
What I put on here?
Just put tradition study. Whatever. I spent an hour, you know, the things. The things.
I see. Just that way.
Here you go, love. Thank you.
Glossary of words. For me. Oh my. Thank you, Mark. Oh yeah.
Recreated?
I retyped. Okay.
She's about to test these earbuds out.
I have them digitally.
Yeah.
And I also did the 4 steps.
Okay.
Do you want that too?
Might as well.
She likes the I was frustrated last week. My boss upset me, so it's soothing to me to do something.
To get paid for doing something different.
Saw that. I am the daughter.
What's happening?
What's wrong?
Where's your buddy?
Well,
It's
it's
really so bad.
All right.
Isn't it cute? Like that too. What? So admin hyper person and format. Format meeting.
I have 4 notebooks with different passwords written on all these different papers, and I started slowly organizing.
Hey, hon.
Writing them correctly.
How are you?
I love to write.
I got new ones. I had to test them out.
Basically has all the websites that I go to. So it has work visit, so Wells Fargo. What's so
So, mine are just written. Is the weather
Yeah,
gonna get bad
mine-
again? Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Lillian sent me her weather report that says it's gonna be icy rain, and mine says, no.
It could be south. But then again, now that they're saying kind of
I
a good
texted Joyce, I
idea.
said, as we, I want you to be as annoyed as me.
Do it. Tell Q. Q doesn't know yet, so I'm trying to.
What's that?
And he still thinks they want to cancel tomorrow. I said, no.
Jonathan, what's that now?
Yeah.
Hey, guys. How are you? Doing all right?
See,
I keep thinking that's a camera, that big thing.
How you doing?
It's an alcoholic's cup.
I was gonna throw them away,
Okay.
so I figured I'd just give them out. instead
Yeah.
of throwing 'em away.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm.
Never happened, but I don't want to throw it away. So, you throw it away, please. Don't make me.
All right. Let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, the traditions are not very popular. The class is dwindling every week. We got 2 weeks left after tonight, so if you hang tough, we'll be okay. Has anybody got any questions on what we've done so far, the first 6 traditions?
okay.
What is it?
You know, also, anybody's welcome to,
Okay, hold on. Guys, we got questions going on here.
I know that's gonna be controversial. What if there's a trans person who comes in? How would you approach them?
So the question is, if a trans person comes in, they want to be with either a men or a women's group. I mean, if they came in and it was a woman's meeting, I would think that's appropriate. And if they came in and want to be in a men's meeting, I mean, who am I to say, you know?
I'm just curious.
I would think either one would be appropriate, probably more so the woman's meeting, but
Why is that?
because they're identifying as a woman, right?
Well,
It could go
not
either way.
necessarily. There are women who identify. as men.
Oh, and then
Be after.
then in that case, they would be more appropriate in a men's meeting, I think. And I don't know. I don't think who they are is the issue, really. I think how we accept people in these rooms is the important thing. So again, we want to be all inclusive and never exclusive. So we don't want to kick anybody, chase anybody away. Where's Doug at? Just realized Doug is missing.
Well, it's the same idea as when you're sponsoring people. It's really their decision what they relate to. Because I sponsored gay guys before. And I know some of the girls who sponsor the gay guys. It really depends what they choose.
Well, the sponsor
Where
being
they can,
comfortable.
where they can relate more. I mean, then they decide.
Yeah, sponsoring is different though than coming into a meeting, I think. I think it's a different topic, but I don't see it as a problem, you know. I don't-
Wouldn't that be an outsider?
It probably would be. Yeah. Yeah, it probably would be. So, I mean, if you get down to technical, yeah, that's probably an outside issue.
Isn't everything an outside issue?
No. No. No, but yeah, I mean, we're trying to split hairs, you know.
No, I was just
Yeah.
listening to the thing the other day and we were talking about the men and the women. And I went, well, what happens when this happens? It was just a question.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
judgment.
All right.
Curiosity killed the cat.
No.
All right. Well, who else? Anybody else have a question on any of the stuff we went through so far? Nobody? We are on tradition 7. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. The long form says, and this is actually long in the long form. The AA groups themselves ought to be fully supported by the voluntary contributions of their own members. We think that each group should soon achieve this ideal. that any public solicitation of funds using the name of Alcoholics Anonymous is highly dangerous, whether by groups, clubs, hospitals, or other outside agencies, that acceptance of large gifts from any source or of contributions carrying any obligation, whatever, is unwise. Then two, we view with much concern those AA treasurers who continue beyond prudent reserves to accumulate funds for no stated AA purpose. Experience has often warned us that nothing can so surely destroy our spiritual heritage as feudal disputes over property, money, and authority. So, I think it's interesting at the beginning of this long form where he says, we think that each group should soon achieve this ideal. So what he's saying there, what he's not saying there is that, because somebody, I think somebody brought that up a week or two ago, like, what, when you start, is it okay for somebody to put money out of their pocket? Didn't somebody bring that up? Was it last week?
Mhm.
Okay, so this answers that, right? And it's saying that as soon as they can, the group should be self-supporting. So that means that before that, they're not. So somebody's carrying the load, and that's okay, but eventually, once the group is established, they should be self-supporting. Because it's the golden rule, right? And you can't get away from the golden rule. Does anybody not know what the golden rule is? He who has the gold makes the rules. So that's money always comes attached with something. Money freely given is a rare gem. So it always comes attached. So you don't want to be obligated to anybody. That's why when they had that meeting with the Rockefeller, and they asked for money, AA, Bill, and them early guys, and it was Rockefeller that said to him that you want to do this, you should be able to take care of yourself, and that is what this is all based on now, being self-supporting. Which happened because Rockefeller ain't going to give you $5,000 way back then, which is like probably 100,000 today, without some strings attached to it. So you don't want people dictating what could be, and that's why even if you look at it without the money aspect, I think we talked about this too, where certain groups were having meetings in facilities where, like, and the facility started dictating what they needed to do. And so then it has to be turned into an H&I meeting rather than a regular meeting. So that's what happens with that. So we want to be self-supporting. I think we talked about also like doing fundraisers and getting money from, like, doing a garage sale and stuff to the public. That's not good, so all of those things we have to be aware of that. One of the things that we have to know that changes, this is 2023, and most people are still putting $1 in the basket. When the basket comes around, $1 doesn't buy today what it bought in 1950 or 1970, when it was common to put $1 in the basket. So if you can afford it, you should put a couple of bucks in the basket. And one of the things, I think we talked about it last week, was how some of the groups are splitting the envelopes with the foundations are splitting the envelopes, and I said that was not kosher. That's not good. Like what I do every year on my birthday, my sobriety birthday, is like this year's November that just passed. I was 31 years sober, so I throw $31 in the basket. I do that every year, and but when I do that, even if it's my $2 that I normally put in there, I'm expecting that money to go to AA, to the group, You know, I know that some of it eventually is going to get kicked up the ladder, but I'm not expecting it to go to something other than AA, which is what a foundation is, right? So you know, that's one of the reasons it's not kosher. The main reason is it's an affiliation when you start splitting money, but the other reason is people are putting money in the basket, not, you know, thinking that that money is going to the group and to AA, you know. So yeah, you gotta, if you follow the traditions, everything stays together and works well. When you get off of them, you get into, you know, controversy, and we don't want to really have controversy. So I shouldn't hesitate, me personally, throwing an extra buck into the basket. You know, if you can't afford it, that's fine. But if you can afford it, just remember a dollar doesn't go where a dollar used to go. So um, it helps to. So how do we? Does anybody got any questions on the intent and the purpose of this tradition for the group? Yes. Oh, I think, yeah.
I'm just checking.
Okay. Anybody besides stretching have a question? No? So, all right, so how do I apply this in my personal life? I have a good example of that, I think. For me personally, so when I was 19 years old, I had a wife and 2 kids. So I went from my mother to my wife. And 20 years later, uh, you know, when I got divorced, I found myself a grown man alone, and I was not self-supporting. Money wise, I was, but I didn't know how to do anything. And take out the garbage, do the dishes, you know, clean the house, and none of that stuff. You know, the things that, you know, you take for granted to get done if, you know, if there's somebody in the house doing it. You know, so that's one of the self-supporting things that I had to, you know, not to need somebody to take care of me and take care of my home and all that stuff. Learn how to do that yourself, or if you can afford to pay somebody to do it for you, you know. That's really what I did. Let me tell you how bad I am. Last week in my house, I put the dishes in the dishwasher. Okay. And on next to the sink is a thing of this dishwashing, you know. So I took that thing and I filled up the dishwasher. And I was in my office, and my dog, after a while, my dog was coming over and hitting my leg, and I was like, "It's not time to eat yet. Chill out." And she ran to the door of the office and barked and ran back to me, hitting my leg. I said, "What's going on?" And I got up, and the freaking kitchen was flooded with suds and water all over the floor. I didn't know that you're not supposed to put I thought it's dishwashers, right? Oh, you
That's
supposed.
fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I did. Flooded the whole kitchen and suds for 3 days. I think there's still suds in the dishwasher. But so what do I know about a dishwasher? I thought, you know, dishwasher
Go to
detergent
restaurant.
goes in the dishwasher. Huh?
You go to a restaurant, don't you?
I don't wash dishes.
Fair enough.
So anyway, it's just things like that. Learn how to be self-supporting, you know, taking care of yourself. It doesn't necessarily just mean money. And that's how you do it. Now at home, in a relationship, and by the way, if anybody don't have all the papers, we have them all now. So each partner ought to strive to be fully self-supporting spiritually, emotionally, and physically. So what does that really mean in your personal life, in your relationship at home? I think we might have talked about this already, but there's always 3 people in a relationship, and I can't stress that enough. I talk about that a lot. It's always me and my shit, her and her shit, and us and our shit, you know, and knowing the difference there. So allowing each person to be fully self-supporting, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, and that's good, you know. Separation, you know, I don't want anybody, I don't care how much I love you, I don't want anybody all in my everything, that my every move. I want a little bit of freedom, a little bit of, breathing room. And probably the other person does too. So those are, that's, how do I do that at work? Self-supporting at work. That's kind of a contradiction, right? Because I'm over there and I'm getting paid for a job. Well, to be self-supporting at work is I get paid for my job and I do my job. And I don't cheat the company, I don't cheat the boss, and I don't slack off because nobody's looking, and that builds character, and character is important for being self-supporting, so but the other part of that at work is, other people have have a job to do too, and I know if I don't do this, he's going to get it done. That's not self-supporting at work, so I'll let them do what I'm supposed to do. That's kind of slacking at work. So does all that make sense to you? At home is another example. At home is a lot of marriages. I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say a lot of marriages break up because of financial issues, right? So what I have found, and when I've worked with people that I sponsor over the years, is a system, a monetary system at home that works really well. And it's like, to make it simple, what I do is, I don't actually do this, but I have done it before. It works well, and I've worked with people and helped them with this, and it works for them. But whatever your bills are, with every bill, you put an envelope and you write the bill on the outside, whatever the bill is, electric, whatever. And then what it is every month. And if you get paid every week, so every week you take a fourth of that and put it in that envelope, right? And then your envelopes get filled up. And then whatever's left, and also one of those envelopes is a savings envelope or a vacation envelope. And if you got whatever money's left, and this is your salary and her salary combined, right? And whatever's left, you split evenly. And that if you make more than her, so it's not that she's getting the better deal, right? But you split your bills are all covered, and then you split the money evenly. Now, let's just say you split and you have $400 each, let's say, and all your envelopes are filled. Well, I don't go out really, so I don't, dinner or clothes, and that's about it for me. And so my money pretty much stays in my pocket, right? But my ex-wife, she liked to shop, right? So if she spent her money, her $400 or whatever she had, then that's her problem. Don't ask me for $50, $100, because I'm not going to give it to you. And the only fight that can happen is that you get mad at yourself for screwing up your money, and now you want to take it out on me, which happened a lot, actually. But I don't have any guilt in the thing, because we had the same amount of money, and just because I used mine wisely and she didn't, it's not my problem. So, huh?
You're divorced, right?
Yeah, we're divorced. We're divorced. But yes, it goes way beyond the money thing, the divorce. But we had arguments over that. I mean, she had arguments. I don't argue. I'm not into the drama at home. But I would just say, what do you want me to tell you? You spent yours. Anything for the house and for us is covered. My personal money, I'm okay with it. Your personal money, you're not okay with it. You need to take a look at that. But that's the fairest thing you can have with money in a relationship. It's very fair. usually the person that messes it up doesn't look at it as fair. But it is fair. So that helps a lot. That, that's being responsible with your money is the same kind of thing that the responsibility with a group should have. What are we spending money on? Are we spending money to help us carry the message? Or are we spending money on things that aren't necessary? So that's a question to ask. So being overly dependent on others is not a good thing, whether it's the group or your job or your home. It's just, that's what this tradition teaches us to not do and not be.
I have
Yes.
a topic kind of involved in that, is with the relationship when it says spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And that's one thing that like with my husband, like sometimes I feel like I'm very like emotionally reliant on it. You know what I mean? And it's hard for me for whatever reason to like take care of myself. And sometimes I think like it's 80 and it's 20. Sometimes it's 50-50. But then there are other things that he's pretty dependent on me too. Like the man will not call to make his own doctor's appointment or a chiropractor appointment or whatever it is that he wants to do. So I was just wondering if we could kind of open it up into maybe not so much money, but also like being dependent on people for things that we should kind of self-care to ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that falls into that category, I mean, if if you take care of the doctor's thing, and he takes care of something else, it's a wash,
I mean, I feel that way.
Yeah, but if
Sometimes
you're
it-
taking care of everything and he's taking care of nothing, it's not a wash, But if I'm feeling emotionally dependent on something or someone, I need to look at that. That's me, It's not the other person. So that's something that I need to look at. What's going on with me that makes me feel that way, But chores are evenly divided,
Not in a lot of homes though.
Oh, no. Like, listen, until last week, I never used a dishwasher in my life. Okay. And I live by myself. I got a nice house, but I don't clean my house. I have somebody come over and clean the house. And when we were married, it was the same thing. It was like, if she's gonna bitch about always clean the house, I tell her, don't do it. We'll pay somebody to do it. So I don't have a problem with those things. But the one chore that's not mine is to clean the house. I will gladly pay, but that's not my chore. I'm not gonna do that. So,
And for me, I mean, my husband and I, before we got married, we talked about a lot of things and came to agreements on different things. I think for me, it's if we've made an agreement,
No.
we both agreed,
tree
A, then I'm gonna do certain things, and B, he's gonna do certain things. And we have an agreement. If I get resentful, that's my problem. I need to do something about it. But I think if we both are okay with the way things are set up, as long as I don't feel like I'm dependent on him, or I feel like he's dependent on me and I'm getting a resentment, that's between the two of us, right?
yeah. I mean, and things change too. You could make agreements and then you realize that the agreement you made you don't like.
Right. So it's what's going
So
on.
now you have to make another agreement.
Right.
Press, change, and rearrange. That's
Right.
okay. All that. I mean, and recovery teaches you that. To not be stuck on anything written in stone and be open minded and willing. But so this tradition, it goes beyond money. Okay. And that's the important thing, just to know that we're talking about being self-supporting as the group, because we don't want to be obligated to anybody for any reason. And the same thing really at home and at work, If you're my coworker and you did my stuff for me and I've been slacking, I'm obligated that I got to do yours. And it's probably going to come in a time when I want to get out of there,
Always.
and now I'm stuck because I got to do with you. Then I get a resentment to you for something that I did. That happened, Dan? You're laughing there.
Oh, yeah.
So that happens a lot, really, is people will get a resentment with you for something that they did, or something that, or an agreement that you had and you kept your part, but they didn't keep their part, and now they're mad at you. That happens all the time. Yeah. All right. Anyone else got a question on that? Okay,
Sorry.
that's
The
okay.
checklist thing, talked about being like spiritually, like, are you using your partner or something other than God as your higher power? Is that something? to
On the healthy
consider?
one?
Hmm.
Well, let's look at the questions. You all should have this, so, but, it says you ask yourself honestly, do you try to manage and control through the purse strings, allowing another only what you deem is necessary or what you want them to have? How does this make you feel? So that's when I talked about, if you divide the money equally, then there's none of that comes into play. Again, it's not my fault or my problem if you spent all your money. Number 2 says, are you controlled by the breadwinner or tied up by the purse strings? How does this make you feel? So either way, yeah, and that happens a lot, and that causes a lot of fights, and that's why I suggested this to so many people over the years, because I've sponsored guys and they tell me what they were doing at home with their money, and that's controlling. They're trying to control the other person, and you control them, somebody like that, monetarily, also by dependence on somebody is control. So, number 3 says, is your partner your higher power? You look for your partner to set the tone for your feelings, attitudes, and actions.
I think that's also like getting you away from being also codependent. Because I know for me, when I started this process, I was extremely codependent on him as a human being.
Yeah.
The financial part we had since day one, 10 years ago, I have my money, he has his money, and then we have our combined money. I do not tell him what to do with his money, and he does, and we've never had a financial argument.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine too.
Being codependent on them, and I don't know, for me, that's something really important, I think, that I'm getting out of the tradition. Is using that person to make me okay, or I'm not okay because that person made me not okay.
Right.
Yeah, so if you're looking for your partner to set your attitudes and your feelings and the things you do, that's classic. Well, it's classic dysfunctional relationship. And it doesn't mean it's the other person's fault. It just means that there's a problem there, and it's certainly dysfunctional.
Does this kind of relate to, that I've always thought that you should be taught that first page in the 4th step in the 12th book, and it says, if you're dependent on anything other than God, there's only 2 outcomes. You will either be abused or you will be abandoned. And that could end up in them relationships. And you don't even have to be dependent on them, right? You could be dependent on the money in a situation.
You could be dependent on the money. You could be dependent on the having somebody with you. There's a lot of things you could be dependent on, And the thing is, if you're healthy in a relationship and you're in an unhealthy relationship, you get out of it. Unhealthy people don't know how or when to get out of a relationship, and so they stay stuck in it for a long time. But a healthy person should know, what's acceptable and what's not, and get out of it. So this next one says, how much do you ask or expect others to fill your emotional needs? See, so they're all going down that path there. You deceive yourself by thinking how unselfish and giving you are, when in reality you're giving only when you can do it on your own terms and ulterior motives. being kind and generous for a reason, right? Do you think because something is good for you personally, that it is good for our relationship, partner, and everyone around you? How about that question? This is the traditions and the healthy relationship part. I'm gonna read that again. Do you think because something is good for you personally, that is good for our relationship, partner, and everyone around you? Hell no. The answer to that would not be no, it would be hell no. The correct answer is hell no. You know, because there's a lot of things that I think are good for me that'll certainly ruin a relationship. You know, my sick ass. All right. Do you have a God of your own understanding, or do you depend upon your partner's beliefs and spirituality? You know, and hell, you'd be surprised. A lot of people, they get with somebody and then they go to that person's church or that person's place of worship, and it's not really what they like or believe, but they're all in on it, you know, and that's only going to bring about resentment and problems later. Do you take responsibility for your own physical needs? Do you have any marketable skills? And what are they, even though you may not currently be working? Do you take responsibility for your own feelings and not blaming others for your feelings as you do? Feeling as you do? You know, that's a classic. That's another classic one. I'm going a little more in depth on this with the relationship deal, because this is really a lot of classic stuff in here, you know. So I always thought that in a relationship, and a certain situation may happen, I'm going to act this way. Boom, 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 right? And because I love you and I'm in this relationship and this occurs, boom, boom, boom is how I would act. Well, if this same thing happens, but you don't, boom, 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 you do something else, right? My first thought is, and my feeling is, you don't love me. Because if you loved me, you would go boom, boom, boom like that.
Don't you know?
Well, that's not reality. That's not reality at all. Everybody's different, and men and women are completely different. And just because you don't act the same way I would in a given situation doesn't mean you don't love me. It just means that I'm pretty sick in this area and I need to take a look at myself. Do you allow another to be responsible for you, or are you self-supporting spiritually, emotionally, and physically? And I think we talked about that already. When you're uncomfortable with something you're doing, does this always indicate that you are out of God's will for your life? That's a good question. What do you think the answer is to that? When you're uncomfortable with something you're doing, does this always indicate that you are out of God's will for your life?
Yes.
Yes.
I like what Jerry says, because I don't always know what's right, but I usually know when it's wrong.
Yeah.
If something wrong.
Right.
Yeah, if you're in God's will, it's probably going to be uncomfortable. If you're following a spiritual path, it's probably not something you like or you're used to. So if you apply this tradition to your personal life, you can see what you're not supposed to be doing. Don't forget that.
Pain to cut away self-will.
I think it's not, it's like, it's one of those like stupid questions that I hated in school. Where it was like always, sometimes, never, right? It's like true or false. This always happens. Well, no, that's false. It doesn't always happen. Like sometimes being uncomfortable is a way to growth. Sometimes being uncomfortable is my gut saying there's something not right here.
Yeah.
But both situations, I should take a pause and evaluate.
And there's a difference between uncomfortable and sick. Like,
Yes.
like there's an instinct.
Yes.
Like uncomfortable is like, an instinct is saying go.
Yeah. But you see, the question said, and this is the key word, when you're uncomfortable with something you're doing, does this always indicate? So yes, you're absolutely right that sometimes this not, but this is saying always indicate that you're out of God's will. And no, that would not be true at all. So
Maybe my.
people like us are, believe it or not, people like us are a little different than the normal person, right? Or a little something, a little twist of it. You talk about in school when you, I remember way back in school, maybe the first, second, or third grade or whatever it was, and they give you this paper, and they say circle the one that doesn't belong, right? And there'd be a dog, a cat, a horse, and a baseball bat. Well, you circle the baseball bat. It doesn't belong, right? And I always felt like that. Just circle my ass because I never belonged. I never belonged with this normal stuff that, there was always something different about me. All right. Could you take care of yourself financially if you had to today? That's a good question.
Kids make that one really hard, I think.
What one thing determines the degree of healthy independence a person truly has? That's a good question. What one thing determines the degree of healthy independence a person truly has? What one thing?
There's not a right or wrong answer.
Can I do it on my own?
Okay.
We do it on our own if we're spiritual. I mean, in my experience, we're leaning on something else.
Well, I mean,
Okay. But the question is, what one thing determines the degree of healthy independence a person truly has? What one thing?
Maybe there's
Faith?
dependence on their higher powers.
Mhm.
Faith,
Yeah.
yeah.
let go.
I think their faith, their spirituality,
Mhm.
you know, their, how sober are you really? Does your partner enhance your life without being your life? Do you enhance your partner's life without being your partner's life? So that's kind of what we all talked about. All right. So anybody got any questions on all that stuff?
You make me feel so much better.
So so that was, we spent more time on that one about the relationship with the traditions. Okay, anybody got any questions? No? Yes.
About our lives different. So, I to understand, like everyone's in a different place in a group,
Uh-huh.
like a different step or a different spiritual awakening or all of that. How does that? I mean, how do you carry that non-dependent? Like how does that work? Said independent or emotional.
Yeah, but now so we were talking about the traditions in a relationship.
Oh, so
And that's where that came in. With the group, the tradition is strictly about the group itself, the whole group being self-supporting, being able to, you're gonna have a meeting, so you gotta pay for a room, you gotta pay for coffee, you gotta have literature, you gotta, it requires some money to have a meeting. Not a lot, but it requires some money and somebody to take care of the money, somebody to take care of this and that. There are the next tradition we're going to talk about hiring people to do things, but so when you talk about the group, we're really just talking about the money, that you're self-supporting, and a little beyond the money, whereas should a group hire somebody to clean up, or should they make the members clean up? So, if we're self-supporting, well, we put money in the basket, and we shouldn't make, because the requirement to be sober is a desire to not drink. It's not to participate in cleaning up. Be nice that we clean up after ourselves, sure, but to say, okay, everybody meet here on Saturday, we're going to clean this place. No. If this place needs to be clean, we need to pay for it. And
Like, good way to determine what's prudent reserve should be.
Prudent reserve, yeah, 3 months rent, 3 months electric. Whatever your bills are, 3 month reserve of your bills. And each group has different bills depending on, like here it's different. But if you have your own place, like you guys have had for years, and you know what your electric bill usually is, you know what your rent is, and some people would consider coffee in that, others don't, because coffee, you got a donation for coffee that should carry it. But so a 3 month prudent reserve of your expenses is appropriate. Terry?
Shouldn't the group conscious decide what is needed for self-supporting?
Sure, absolutely.
You may have, for instance, may not.
Right.
You may want to have the group pay coffee, may not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of the group conscious, whatever they come up with, what that money goes to. Money goes to the same purpose. Just to have a group together. Talk about the big one, or the lack of somebody like that big
Yeah,
at some point.
yeah. Absolutely. The group conscience can say, especially if they don't have rent, we're gonna buy a dozen books, and we'll just keep them here. If somebody needs one, we'll get them started with a book.
Is there like a process for that? I can't ever remember someone saying we're having a group conscious Saturday.
Well, it's the
not-
business meeting. Each group has
So
a
it's the
business meeting, usually once a month.
Okay, so it's the business.
Some people call it a business meeting, some people call it a group conscience meeting.
Okay.
Some groups have both. Northside Freedom has both.
Okay. What would be the difference? What do they do at the business meeting? What do they do at the group conscience meeting?
They cover the treasurer's report. They look more into like the financial.
Well,
units.
so
And then-
Northside has a foundation too. And so the business meeting is actually the foundation, whereas.
Oh, so
group
that's
has
not the group.
response.
Yeah, okay.
And so they use different terminology to distinguish between. the
Right.
functions.
So the business meeting is not actually a group.
No, it's the business. And
Yeah,
then the
right.
group conscience is
Yeah. So they actually only have the group conscience,
that group, yes.
the group. Because again, we don't want to get enmeshed with the foundations and how they operate. So,
So the Greek, the business meeting, the board, whatever, on certain issues or questions says, shall we have a group conscience?
well, yeah.
Hands.
And usually, and this doesn't necessarily mean that it happens, but usually the business meeting is already, the topic is already, they have an agenda. And you have, let's just say, you have up to 10 days before the business meeting to get to the chairperson and put something on the agenda. That's the normal way it should happen. It doesn't usually flow like that. And so the chairperson has an agenda. And if you come up at the last minute with something that you want on the agenda, if it's important and they have time, they can discuss it. Otherwise, they table it to the next thing.
Well, I think that's probably, in my experience, at least the best way to do it. Because with the
Can I get a
previous
half a
rate
cup?
club,
Thank you.
first, second, third, whenever we contacted everybody.
Yeah.
For moving, for different stuff,
Yeah,
it was mayhem.
yeah,
It
usually
was
is.
Absolute mayhem.
yeah. Well, try to get a bunch of alcoholics together to do something.
250.
In Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is the truth, 15% of the people do 100% of the work. Thank you. And that holds true, give or take a little bit, on everything that AA does. So some people will, and then the unhealthy part of that is that some people don't want to let go of what the position is that they've been doing for so long. When these traditions ask us to realize the spirit of rotation.
Some people just won't take the job. And
That's another issue. All right. All right, let's move on then. Tradition 8.
I have one more.
Okay, one more.
Because we were talking about this and I thought it was interesting, about like the large gifts or whatever, but we were also talking last week about like the treasure, like money and you put it in a bank account in the group, whatever. What if there's like, so we rent this place, but the person is in AA, and so they reduce
Can
it
you pass
to
this?
50% the cost of rent because it's an AA meeting. Is that okay? Is that fully self-supporting? Is that,
Yeah, if the landlord reduces it because it's an AA meeting, is that what you're saying? Whatever the rent is, it is. If it's been reduced, that's what it is. It's not okay to impose on the landlord because he's a member of AA to impose on him to give you a break financially that he wouldn't do for a regular tenant. Now you're imposing on a member of Alcoholics Anonymous to do something that,
is it okay for a member of Alcoholics Anonymous to do something extra that he wouldn't do for other tenants?
yes, if that's the person's
Prerogative.
desire, yes. But yeah, and then there's rules on how much could one person donate at a time. I think they've changed it, but for years and years it was $5,000, I think, but I think it's past that now. Well, all right. Tradition 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. And the long form is not that long. It says Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional. We define professionalism as the occupation of counseling alcoholics for fees or hire. But we may employ alcoholics where they are going to perform those services for which we might otherwise have to engage non-alcoholics. Such special services may be well recompensed, but our usual AA 12-step work is never to be paid for. Now, so early on in AA, there were, and I think it talks about this in the literature, and Bill and one lady were the office in New York. And when Jack Alexander did that article in the paper, they got swarmed by hundreds and thousands of letters from people all over the country because Alcoholics Anonymous was now exposed as, such a great thing for alcoholics that it's working so well. And so Bill had no choice because they had mountains of letters that had to be read and answered. And it was just him and the lady in the office. And so he asked all groups to send $1 per member for the year. Was it for the year?
Dollar, you said it already. $1 is a
Yeah,
dollar.
I think you're right. Yeah. So $1 a year per member. And he got really pissed off because there was a really slow response to that. No, they didn't act. The groups didn't act. Today, the World Service Office is a financially stable place for sure. If you ever go to New York and you see where they're at, they're in a good building there. I used to go every Friday to the World Office, and that was the only day they had a meeting there at noon on Friday. And it was always a good meeting because there was people traveling from all over the world that would come there, and we'd have a meeting every Friday at noon. And, and then everybody from the Grapevine and everybody who worked in AA, most of them were all AA people. But here's the thing that they're saying. If something has to be done, right, well, we can't impose on our members to do it. So if we're going to have to hire somebody to clean the place or hire somebody to do the bookkeeping or hire somebody to whatever has to be done, we can't impose on our members to do it. So we're going to hire somebody. Now, if there's a member of Alcoholics Anonymous that is qualified for that job, this tradition is saying it's okay to pay them to do it. Because if you didn't hire them, you'd have to hire somebody else, a non-alcoholic. Well, we feel, I grew up in a little Italy in New York, and we always, our attitude was always spend where you earn. If you're gonna buy something, buy it in the neighborhood, buy it from the people, support and today it's like kind of support your local businesses and that kind. Well, AA way back then was, they had the attitude that if we gotta hire somebody to do whatever, and a non-alcoholic and the alcoholic is qualified, let's hire the alcoholic. And this tradition covers that. And we may hire people to do special jobs for us because we don't want to impose upon our members. We don't want to say, we need you guys to do this, this, and that. We don't want to do that. We only need you to attend the meeting, that's all we need you to do. And you throw something in the basket, great. And that's all we ask from you, is that you have a desire not to drink today. That's all we ask from you. No, not a desire not to drink today and build a brick wall for us to separate this group from it's not that. So if something needs to be done and we have to hire somebody, and there's an alcoholic, the recovering alcoholic, that's just as qualified as a non-alcoholic, why not hire the alcoholic? Now, there's no rule says you have to, but the attitude is, why not? And because way back then, people thought, well, we're taking advantage, and we're not. Now, if we hire this person to do it because we're expecting them to give us a break, that's wrong. But if we have to pay X amount of dollars here to the non-alcoholic and the same X amount of dollars here to the recovering alcoholic, let's pay the recovering alcoholic.
God knows we have our time finding.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we want to try to practice in this tradition is speak not when we know not. Okay, that's pretty tough. But when you're in a business meeting, right, and they're talking about something and you don't, people like us, we like to get in on every conversation, And we, I know nobody relates to that.
You looking at me?
No, I'm just not looking at you.
I feel
But-
attacked.
We like to talk about, I remember before I got sober, I was invited one time to a party in the person owned penthouse 1, 2, and 3. I never got lost in a house before. I got lost in that place. It was 3 entire floors and very, very, very filthy rich in the middle of Manhattan. And I was walking down a flight of steps and in the house, and there was a beautiful koi pond under the steps, and it was just top shelf place. And I didn't belong there, I really didn't belong there. But somebody that went there wanted me to go with them, and so I went. And these guys were talking, having a conversation. A few guys standing around drinking. I walked over there and I started talking to them. I don't know a fucking thing about what they were talking about. I got right in that conversation, And I did a pretty good job, I think, because they were like, "Oh yeah, really? Yeah." I didn't even know what they were talking about. So we're like that, right? But so in a business meeting, or even not even in a business meeting, and just in generally in talking with people in AA, if I practice this tradition, I try not to speak about shit that I really don't know about. All right, in the healthy part for the relationship, the healthy relationship says our marriage or relationship should remain forever a free giving relationship, one to the other. So something else. So what is that? What are they talking about here? One of the questions here is an interesting one. It says, do you ever ask God to allow you to see your partner as he sees himself? That's an interesting question.
Does it mean that it's unconditional? Not giving something for something?
I don't.
Strings attached.
Yeah, I'm one of these people that believe, and this is just me. I'm not trying to tell you guys anything, but I don't believe that human beings are capable of agape love, unconditional love. I think agape love is God's way to love us. I don't, because I love my kids more than anything in the world, right? But when they fuck up and do some shit, I ain't too damn loving. I got maybe bite my tongue, but at that moment, my experience is that I could love somebody deeply, but there's always a condition attached to my love. Maybe yours isn't, but
it's got to be a minimum for a healthy relationship.
yeah, it could be a minimum, but it's still there.
I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah,
I'm saying
it's not big and unhealthy. Yeah, but I don't know if we're capable of loving people unconditionally. So all of this stuff would come back to conditions, really, if you think of it like that. All of this stuff is attached to a condition,
That gives us ideal to strive.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. That's an ideal to strive for. Attainable, I don't know, but it's a good idea to strive for.
God's image.
Huh?
God's image. Trying to be like God-like. Right? That's a good question, like you said.
I don't know about godlike.
Well, God is the only one that gives us agape love, right? That unconditional love, and so that's something that we should strive for, right?
Well, yeah, that's what
Like
Terry's saying. We can strive for that, I don't think we can achieve that, but we can strive for that,
It's a powerful question.
It's a very powerful question, really. And here's the other one in here that's what is grudging compliance and why is it unhealthy in relationships? Grudging compliance. Yeah. I'm sure we've all experienced a little of that. Yeah.
Oh, that's silly.
All right, listen, we're gonna have 2 more weeks left. So hopefully we'll have a few people in the chairs in 2 weeks. Anybody got any questions on what we talked about tonight? I know the traditions are not. What did you say? Who was it that said sexy? They're not sexy. Somebody said that. Was that you? You
What?
said
What
sexy, the traditions?
Oh, I said traditions
Yeah.
aren't sexy.
The traditions aren't sexy. So we don't get people to stick with them. But if you can learn how to practice these in your life will improve. If you can have the knowledge of this, you can help your AA group. So there's only 2 more weeks left, so try to stick it out. I appreciate you being here.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, Dan.
I don't know where this goes.
See
but
you
I'm
next week.
gonna envelope.
All right, buddy.
A copy of the paper copy because
Which one? The
of
healthy?
all of whatever you have
What is here?
because she did it and for some reason my phone won't open any of those. And I'm
Okay,
sure
I think this is. What do we have here? What do we have here? Where's the papers? Let me shut this off and I'll get you copies.